and a little goatee, picked up a quill and wrote some of the finest sonnets the world has ever seen. 500 years later, a man with nothing better to do sits down with a microphone and tries to work out what the hell that bloke was going on about. Welcome to the final couplet. Hello there. Welcome back to the final couplet with me. Let's say it together. Theo Cowan. I hope you said that out loud at the same time as I did. Otherwise I'll be very disappointed. Well, it's another week and another podcast. This time obviously looking at another William Shakespeare classic. This one, Sonnet 29, nearly at 30. And you know what? Boy, do I have a surprise for you at 30. It may involve a guest. Oh, I'll leave that with you. And if you're thinking, oh my God, he's got Ian McKellen on, who am I to say that it isn't him? If you're thinking, wow, he's got Judy Dench on, well, maybe. If you're thinking he's got someone on better than both of them, quite possibly. If you're thinking, why is it taking so long for him to get a guest on? It's because you need 2 microphones and I only had one and now I've got 2. So the real problem is going to be, how do you use them both at the same time? So that's what I've been doing this week, is just looking up YouTube videos and stuff like that. Explainers on how to use 2 microphones at the same time and record a podcast on them. You know what? There's a lot on that platform, YouTube. And this isn't an advert. But if YouTube are listening and they want me to do one, drop me an email. They could do with the advertisement, I think. Sometimes when I'm on YouTube, I think, imagine if Shakespeare could have a little look at YouTube. His mind would be blown, wouldn't it? He'd probably do a sonnet about it. Maybe there is a sonnet about it. I haven't read that far yet. But there are, 150 something sonnets, so the likelihood is that one of them will be about YouTube. Right, let's dive into Sonnet 29. And I can tell you for a fact that it is not Sonnet 27 Part 3. This is a totally new sonnet. Sonnet 29. When in disgrace with fortune and men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state, and trouble deaf heaven with my bootless cries, and look upon myself, and curse my fate, wishing me like to one more rich in hope, featured like him with friends possessed, desiring this man's art and that man's scope, with what I most enjoy contented least. Yet in these thoughts myself almost despising, haply I think on thee, and then my state, like to the lark at break of day arising from sullen earth, sings hymns at heaven's gate. For thy sweet love remembered such wealth brings, that then I scorn to change my state with kings. I think we've got a contender for my favourite sonnet so far. I really like this one, but he's very down on himself. But he's talking quite honestly and quite frankly about how he feels about himself sometimes, and how he feels he doesn't have any friends and he's not as good looking as he'd like to be. And that's just really nice and honest, isn't it? Because in previous sonnets, we've seen Shakespeare sort of big himself up and say how great he is. And it's nice that in this one, he's showing a vulnerability, I think. And he's got more of a gothic sort of tendency. Anyway, let's dive in line by line and try and work out what the hell Shakespeare was on about in Sonnet 29. So we start with, when in disgrace with fortune and men's eyes, I all alone beweep my outcast state. So here he's saying, when I'm in disgrace with everyone, so when no one likes me really, and I've fallen out of luck, fortune, I sit around and I cry about the state that I'm in, my outcast state. I'm an outcast to society, and trouble deaf heaven with my bootless cries. So that's him sort of shouting up at heaven, but heaven's not listening. Now I know what you're thinking. Bootless heaven? Why does heaven not have its boots on? It's going to get all cold and stuff. But that's not what bootless means. Bootless, I think, means sort of pointless. So pointless cries, or just ineffective cries. And look upon myself and curse my fate. So that's just looking at himself and cursing the day he was born. Not the day, that's a bit dramatic, but cursing his luck, his fate. Maybe he's looking at himself in the glass. We've learnt what that means, haven't we? Everyone together, mirror. Well done. Good memory. Wishing me like to one more rich in hope, featured like him with friends possessed. So here he starts comparing himself to other men. He's saying, I wish I had more to hope for, like other blokes. And I wish featured like him, I wish I had lovely features. I wish I was hot like him. And then like him, with friends possessed, I wish I had friends. I wish that I had more hope. I wish I was hot. And I wish I had friends. Isn't that most of our mantras on a daily basis? Then he continues with desiring this man's art and that man's scope. So he starts wanting, another man's artistic ability and another man's, now I think scope is opportunity. So another man's opportunities. With what I most enjoy, contented least. So he's not happy with the things that he most enjoys. He's not contented with them. He's in a horrible old way, isn't he, Shakespeare? May I suggest therapy? Do you think they had therapy back then? Do you think Shakespeare could just pop round to a therapist? 80 quid an hour? Something like that? Now here's the switch in the sonnet. Yet in these thoughts myself almost despising, haply I think on thee. So he's saying, when I'm thinking these horrible thoughts and I'm almost despising myself, I'm not actually despising myself. I think he's in denial here. It sounded a lot like he was despising himself in the previous 6-7 lines. But, he doesn't want to admit it. Anyway, when he's almost despising himself, he happens to think about you, his lover. And then my state, like to the lark at break of day arising from sullen earth, sings hymns at heaven's gate. So his sort of depressive state lifts, like a lark at daybreak, rising up and leaving the earth behind it and singing at the gates of heaven, which is quite a nice image. I mean, that is definitely uplifted. That's about as uplifted as you can get, isn't it? Imagine that. Imagine being in that state, a state so uplifted that you're like a lark rising from the earth in the morning and going to heaven's gates. He must really, really like this person if they can have that effect on him. And now we're on to the final couplet. For thy sweet love remembered such wealth brings, that then I scorn to change my state with kings. And this means when I think about your sweet love, I am so wealthy and prosperous that I wouldn't even want to change places with a king, which is a hell of a statement, because obviously you think about the king now, and I wouldn't really want to swap places with the king now, but I guess then the king was really a big deal, had a lot of power. Obviously the king has power now, but back then it was like, who do you want to be? The king. Now it's like, who do you want to be? Brad Pitt, I guess. So that there is the end of Sonnet 29. And again, I'm going to say it, I really like this one. I think Shakespeare's being vulnerable. I think he's being honest. I think he's admitting that he doesn't have any friends. And maybe he's not the best looking guy in the world, but that doesn't matter, because when he thinks about his love, he is so uplifted and feels wealthy and prosperous, and he wouldn't want to swap places with anyone. And that's really lovely, isn't it? I think if I received this sonnet, first of all, I'd say, is everything okay? Because I don't want you thinking like that all the time, Shakespeare. That's really quite a depressive state to be in, and maybe you need help. And then I'd go, but thank you so much. I'm honoured that I'm the person that can lift you out of those dark thoughts. That's really beautiful. If I were to give this one a star rating, I'd give it 5 stars probably. Maybe I should start giving them star ratings. That'd be good. And then when we come to the end, I can list them all in star rating order. Well, that could be something to look forward to in 2.5 years' time. For all of us. Anyway, let's put this to our story. Now, if you'll remember, the story at the moment involves Shakespeare and his lovely cat, Mercutio, are delivering messages back and forth with a shadowy figure who is as yet unnamed and unidentified completely. So Shakespeare has sent the shadowy figure a couple of sonnets now. The last 2 were, of course, Sonnet 27 and then 27 Part 2, which some people like to call Sonnet 28. And those 2 were both about how he's having a tough time sleeping because he's thinking about the shadowy figure so much. And he works so hard in the day. God knows what he's doing. I thought he was a writer. Anyway, so Mercutio, the cat, has just delivered Sonnet 27 Part 2 / Sonnet 28 to a very drunk shadowy figure who's lying in a gutter. Let's see what they make about that sonnet that's again about having trouble sleeping. And of course, what happens next and how Sonnet 29 fits into things. The shadowy figure finishes reading Sonnet 27 Part 2 / Sonnet 28. First of all, they think, why has it got 2 titles? What's going on here? Just give it one title. And why is it Sonnet 27 Part 2 and 28? Where are all the other sonnets? I've only received a few. Who are the other ones for? And then they got annoyed because they thought, why is this random person sending all these sonnets to me attached to a cat about how they can't sleep because they're thinking about me? It doesn't make any sense. I don't even know this person. And they think, you know what? I'm not sending one back. I'm done with this. If this person is just going to complain about how hard it is during the day to work and how hard it is to sleep because they're thinking about me, that's not romantic. I'm annoyed. They call Mercutio up onto their lap and rip Sonnet 27 Part 2 / 28 into pieces in front of Mercutio's eyes. Little does the shadowy figure know that Mercutio doesn't care about the sonnets, just wants some food. He's actually quite sick of the sonnets, and seeing Sonnet 27 Part 2 / 28 be torn up was a sweet, sweet relief, because they thought, well, now I won't have to deliver these flipping sonnets all through the night. And the shadowy figure said to Mercutio, leave me, I'm done with this. And tell your owner that I don't want to receive any more sonnets. And Mercutio thought, I don't know how I'm going to tell my owner I'm a cat. Anyway, Mercutio ran off into the night, all the way back to Shakespeare's house. Mercutio got out the key that Shakespeare had given him and opened the door. Shakespeare was stood right there, and it shocked Mercutio. He jumped back. Shakespeare picked Mercutio up and started frantically searching for a letter. But of course, there wasn't one. Shakespeare looked Mercutio in the eyes and said, Where's the letter? Where's the poem back? A little tear rolled down Mercutio's eye because of his eye infection. But this made Shakespeare very, very sad. And he too wept. He wept and cried and shouted to the heavens and said, "Why me? I don't deserve this. I'm a nice man and I'm a good writer. I am." He spent the whole night weeping and shouting and bemoaning his existence. Mercutio didn't get a wink of sleep that night, and he didn't get fed. It was a nightmare. The next day came around and Shakespeare was in a very unhappy state. So he went to the pub, of course. The Nag's Head was heaving with customers, and Shakespeare barged his way to the bar and said, "1 pint of mead, please." "No, wait, make that 5. And the barmaid said, "Tough day, Bill." And Bill said, "You could say that. I've lost the love of my life." And the barmaid said, "Well, there's plenty more fish in the sea, Bill." And Bill said, "What the hell does that mean? Just give me my mead. I'm so unhappy." And the barmaid said, "Well, Bill, you could always try and win him back." And Bill said, How do I do that? This is ridiculous. I don't even know who this person is. I've never seen them, but I still think about them all the time." And the barmaid said, "Just tell them how you feel, Bill." "Tell them how you feel." And then the barmaid got up on the bar, and there was a big musical number with singing and dancing and all sorts of instruments, and Shakespeare joined in and did a little verse about how sad he's been and how he's going to win the shadowy figure back. It was pretty amazing. I wish you were there to see it. At the end of the musical number, Bill got out his quill, Bill's quill, and wrote the most honest sonnet he'd written yet. He showed it to the barmaid and said, "Well, what do you think?" And she said, "Yeah, it's all right, yeah." But Shakespeare knew she wasn't properly educated, so she wouldn't really understand it. He whistled for Mercutio, who came scampering over expecting some food, but unfortunately got picked up by the neck and had Sonnet 29 attached to him. He looked up at Shakespeare, as if to say, "Another message? To the shadowy figure? Didn't they not want to see you again?" And Shakespeare nodded and said, "Just do it." And that was how the famous sportswear brand Nike got their slogan. Mercutio ran and ran around London searching and searching for the shadowy figure. Eventually, they found them, swimming in a lake. Mercutio, like the noble cat he was, jumped into the lake and started swimming over to the shadowy figure. The shadowy figure looked shocked and thought, "It's that cat again. I thought I got rid of that thing." Mercutio finally reached the shadowy figure, and they detached a soggy Sonnet 29 from Mercutio's neck, sighed, and read, Sonnet 29. When I'm in disgrace with everyone, and my luck has left me, I cry about being an outcast, and uselessly shout up to heaven's deaf ears, and look at myself, and curse my fate, wishing that I had more to hope for, wishing I was hot and had loads of friends. I start desiring a certain man's artistic skills, and another man's opportunities, and the things I usually enjoy, I feel dissatisfied by. Yet when I'm thinking about how much I don't like myself, I happen to think of you. And then my mood improves, like a lark arising at the break of day and leaving the sullen earth to sing hymns to heaven. For when I remember your sweet love, I feel so prosperous that I wouldn't even want to swap places with a king. Lovely stuff. I really think this poem to the shadowy figure will help redeem Shakespeare. But of course, we'll have to find out what happens next week. Until then, bye!